What's up, brother? I'm so excited to have you in. First off, how's your morning going?
So far, so good, man. Thank you for having me back.
It's interesting because I think I've known you for a long time, and I know a lot about you, but I'm excited to hear more of your story.
Yeah, man.
What I thought about this question to start us off.
Mm-hmm.
When Pierce Wylie was growing up, what did you think you wanted to be, or what did you what was your plan for yourself when you were young?
Yeah, that's a good one. I definitely, I was told that I was like a salesperson, so I just figured I would end up selling something. When I got to college, I was too scared to be a business major because I was not good at math in high school. So I was like, I'm not doing that. So I ended up doing like journalism, which was like PR and advertising. And then
Me too.
Did you? Yeah. We actually had some classes together. Yeah, some summer classes. So I thought that I wanted to be like Donald Draper, like Mad Men, like coming up with commercials and like stuff like that. And then I think I realized like you can't graduate with a journalism degree if you're not good at writing. So so that didn't work. So I think I bit the bullet and ended up switching to business to do like marketing and management, but yeah, I was definitely scared of the business classes. But
when you were young, you had a pretty big family. You had some siblings, some older siblings.
Yep.
What was it like having Trip and Jess as your older siblings, and what do you remember early about them?
Oh man, well yeah. So being the youngest, you definitely look up to your older siblings a ton. So Trip definitely always idolized Trip, but even when Jessica, my oldest sister, when she lived with us, because I think there's 10 years between us, so brief period where we were under the same roof. But yeah, I remember I remember idolizing her when she babysat me and stuff, and her friends would come over. Like, dude, I would like steal her CDs and listen to her music. I'd like look at all the posters on her wall. Anything that she did, I thought was cool. So,
did you have any crushes on her friends?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Many of them. Many of them. That's the thing. Same with Ellison too. Ellison's friends.
You had two older sisters, plenty of girls around the house. I know I had crushes on my sister's friends, and they still joke with me about it today. Not crushes on Trip's friends, I'm sure. With Trip, and this is an interesting segue. I think we've talked about this. You idolize your brother, like you're trying to be cool in the world of the social scene, growing up through middle school and high school. Like for you, what was that like trying to fit in, trying to be part of the in crowd?
Yeah, dude. I think that goes to Jessica and Ellison, Trip too, just like looking at all of my older siblings. Even when you're a baby, you're just emulating what they do. You're copying them. They're saying things, you're saying it, and they laugh at you. So you're kind of always feeding off of that a little bit. So, but yeah, like Trip, just being my brother as opposed to my sisters, at swim practice, whatever, like I just wanted to listen to the music that he was doing. I wanted to wear the clothes that he was wearing. Like everything, I just kind of wanted to copy him. And on some level, that was probably very similar for Trip, like copying his, older siblings. So looking at what, Jessica's doing when she's in high school and he's in middle school. So it definitely, I don't know, I guess maybe the babies can be a little bit more rebellious or maybe get in a little bit more trouble. So, maybe I was a little older than my years. Like sure. I definitely started drinking before most of my friends because I saw I remember Jessica getting in trouble for having parties at the house and stuff, and like crazy parties at the house.
I heard Jess was a party animal.
She was a party animal. She was a party animal. Like people doing donuts in our front yard. Like I remember one time I came home from like a family trip that she didn't go on. I get in my bed and my bed just crumbles to the floor. Apparently it was like after the Jailman Greenville High football game, like one of the linemen's like jumping on my bed and just destroys my bed. So like I was like little when that happened. So looking at them, seeing that drinking was or being in the party scene, we'll say, was kind of part of it. Like I just was like, well, that's obviously what I'm gonna do. Yeah. I remember being in middle school, dude, like, sneaking beers and stuff. Like, so it literally was I don't want to say part of my identity, but maybe it was. I don't know. Getting in trouble by way of drinking is just what I did. Like, I was always grounded. Like, I was getting in trouble. I got in trouble a bunch through school. I got arrested a bunch of times. Like, it was bad,
Do you think alcohol is a common, like, fit-in tool for teenagers and high schoolers? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's got to be. Like, I think, one, because the liquid courage, for one. Yeah. Like, when you drink it, it is just going to make you feel more sociable, more fun, more funny, like whatever. So I think just the effects that it has on you, yes, but then also, I mean, that's just like the thing. I remember being in high school, being like a freshman and hearing the upperclassmen like, where are we going out tonight? Or, like going out was the thing. So I was like, as soon as I get a car, I'm going out. I'm going out all the time. Yeah, so like that was definitely a thing. So, and I'm sure everyone's relationship with alcohol and being the cool kids or whatever, everyone probably has a different story. But for me, and probably for you, because I know all of your friends too, when you're running those circles, that was like the only way it seemed. Mm-hmm. You had to drink to be cool.
That was the main way. If you're drinking, if you can go get beer, if you can chug a beer.
You had a fake ID.
Good at drinking games, all that sort of stuff. That's like being the cool kid.
Yeah, drinking before football games. I got arrested for drinking before a basketball game. It was just, but it, like, even when all that stuff happened, mm-hmm. like, it was just what you did, It didn't ever think anything different about it. It was just,
When did it register to you, or it start to register for you? And it could have been early on, and you just continued to drink for a long time. But like, when did you start like getting bad hangovers? You're just realizing like, I feel like shit a lot of times when I drink.
Yeah, dude. I wish I could say it happened earlier, but the truth is, I was stuck in that trap for a very long time. I mean, the hangovers probably started getting worse definitely post-college. Like, I don't really remember being that hungover in college, which was dangerous.
Me too.
You could just be a machine and just roll. But yeah, like, so definitely after college, I would say probably like 27 or so is when I started noticing it, but doing nothing about it. I was not making any effort to stop. I wasn't pulling back. I wasn't going home earlier. I wasn't trying to drink less. But I do remember on my 30th birthday, so late in 29, I was like trying to make some changes and stuff. And I remember I wasn't drinking. My birthday's in January, so I was 28 days into dry January, and then my wife threw a 30th party for me, surprise party, and so naturally everyone's like, "Oh fuck that, get a drink, dude, you're drinking today." Yeah. So like ended up throwing away dry January that year. So I do remember by 30 I was trying to make a change, but I was still seeing that kind of that pressure. Like, obviously it's my 30th birthday and no one knows that I'm trying to make these changes, so I'm not like that shocked that my friends were like, you're drinking today.
Yeah, sure.
But it definitely took to be about 30 until I started trying to make changes.
What about, because we talked about early on in our lives, it's almost like a tool to fit in. Mm-hmm. Then I think as we age, it's almost like a tool to relieve stress. Or a tool, like we think about it as like a medication in a way, but I don't think we actually think about it as medication, because I think if people thought about it more as medication, they maybe wouldn't do it as much.
Right.
But we naturally use it for other vices or to relax. Like, talk to me through that.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem. Like, I always talk about like the over glamorization of alcohol. It's like propaganda that's been fed to us forever, and you think that it's the best tool for you, to aid whatever symptom that you have, because it's so readily available. You just go up to the Spinx right there and, you grab a beer or whatever. But just because it's readily available does not mean it's the best coping mechanism. So probably 28, 29, whatever, like when I started noticing I was having some problems, it was through work. I was working really hard, kind of a high stress job, high paced job, a lot of pressure, and I was feeling the need to cope. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was burnout. I was burnout as hell, and that is really tough too. That can lead to depression. It can lead to anxiety. It can lead to negative self-talk. Like I had just the litany of problems, and I was lost, dude, just lost in it. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't even know until after I kind of was coming out of it. But what I was doing was when I got home from work, I would just pour like a glass of bourbon. I like bourbon, had some nice bourbon on the bar, and I just kind of got in the habit of doing that, thinking it would help, and not knowing that there are other options out there, you know. And and it was just a bad road, and it took me a long time to realize that it wasn't helping. I felt like it was literally throwing gasoline on the fire of the problems that I already had. With
burnout, I think it's very common, but like you said, I don't think people can really realize it sometimes when they're in it.
Yeah.
So now when you reflect on those days when you were burnt out, and I'm sure you're still working crazy hard, but it's for a different mission and passion.
Yeah.
Like, talk me through those feelings now that you can reflect on those times when you were burnt out.
Yeah, God. Other than it just being a rough time, like again, being depressed and not knowing that I was depressed, because
How do you describe what your depression was like?
Well, I would say dark would be an easy way to describe it. Like everything seemed dark, and I think that even reflected on like the way the clothes I wore. You know, like, you know, when you're feeling like your world is dark, you probably wear a lot of black and stuff like that. So like I literally felt like everything was darker. Like my boss at the time would make fun of me. He called me tough guy because I had just this like mean mug on my face. I felt like I was just really unhappy and visibly kind of unhappy. And
I will say, not like I picture you.
And that's what I was going to say. I don't think most people that know me, I'm sure a lot of people would be surprised to hear that I was depressed for some period of time.
Yeah.
Because that's not really my personality. I'm pretty, you know, kind of high energy and, you know, and more personable, but I was not at that time. That actually is reminding me part of what my depression was probably also some of the medications that I was on. So kind of going back to alcohol not working, I went to a doctor that prescribed me a lot of things that probably I asked for because I thought it was going to help. You know, I'm not productive enough. You know, going back to negative self-talk.
Yeah.
I'm not productive enough, or imposter syndrome. I'm not worthy of this position. I'm not worthy of making this much money, or like whatever it may be. So I need something to make me more productive. So here's Adderall. I can't sleep for shit. Like, all right, well, here, take this Ativan to unwind. Yeah. I'm waking up in the middle of the night. All right, well, take an Ambien and you won't. Yeah. All right, so I'm on all three of these things, and you know, and that I think is what was contributing to it too. So I'm prescribed medication to help remedy all these symptoms, but the real symptom ends up being I'm fucking depressed. You know, and I feel like a robot, you know? And so anyway, so that probably is also why it's really tough to be able to like know when you're in it. You think you're doing the things right because your doctor told you to do it.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, so it was just kind of a dark period. I mean, I think really, you know, dating my now wife helped me get out of that. I think she really helped me put up a lot of gutter guards to make sure that I wasn't further driving myself into the ground. Kind of looked out for me there, helped me protect me from myself in a lot of ways. But yeah, it was just a dark, unhappy time, and I didn't really know when it would end. I didn't really have a good way of getting out of it. It just, it was like I say, lost is probably the easiest way.
Yeah. What was it like trying to get off the medication, or how did you decide to, you know, I don't know what medication you're on any now, but how did you kind of describe to get away from that?
I am off all medication now, and I have been for a long time, pretty much since all of this happened, you know. I remember one of my buddies went to like Portland or, you know, Seattle or something, and he came back with some weed. And I used to smoke a lot, you know, in college and everything, and stopped for not any real particular reason, just wasn't smoking much. And I was having trouble sleeping, as I mentioned earlier. So he left like a pre-roll at the house, so I smoked it and just passed out like immediately on the couch. You know, like I was watching TV and I just dozed off, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't slept like that in forever.
Felt great.
It felt incredible, and it was just encouraging that, like, just, you know, I don't have a high tolerance either, especially at that time. So I didn't smoke much of that joint either, maybe a quarter of it or something, and just was relaxed, dozed off, got in bed, fell back asleep, and was like, that has not happened in a while. Yeah. So that kind of reinvigorated the cannabis thing for me. So I started smoking again, and again, I don't have a high tolerance, but I would smoke just in the evenings before bed. And that started me getting off of everything. I realized that Adderall was not it for me. You know, I was prescribed Adderall when I was, or whatever the, you know, ADD medicine was at the time.
Ritalin or something back in the day?
I probably had everything under the sun. I was a kid that they thought needed it pretty bad, and I probably did. But yeah, but it wasn't it for me, dude. Not as an adult. So that helped a ton. And then I just slowly got off of the Ambien and the Ativan. I really would only use that as a safety net. I remember my doctor did say, like, don't be a martyr. You know, if you are having real issues, you know, don't white knuckle through it, you know, take the parachute if you need it. So I had it on hand and stretched that last prescription out for like a year.
Yeah,
and,
sometimes it's good just to know you have it, just
right,
in case.
Exactly. And you probably don't end up using it as much, but knowing it's there provides some comfort. But that's long past, you know, have not refilled that prescription. And honestly, and I'm not even just saying that because of Rebel Rabbit, like legitimately, cannabis did help me get off of all three of those medications. And then cannabis and my wife probably helped me get out of that dark stage that I was in.
How'd you meet your wife?
I met her, so she's from Greenville, you know, went to Riverside, but I didn't know her in high school, and I knew of her in college, but wasn't really friends with her in college. But technically the first time we met was in college, at Hunter Lipscomb's house, actually. Yeah, at Hunter's house. But really moving back to Greenville, that was kind of when we reconnected, and that was, you know, 5 years ago.
What's the story though? How'd you first reach out to her?
Oh, I shot my shot, dude. I slid in the DMs. Yeah, dude. I was down in Charleston. I was selling my house in Charleston. I knew I was moving back to Greenville. I was not excited about moving back to Greenville.
Come on.
At the time, I was not. I love it here now, but I just, you know, I was leaving Charleston. I was in Austin prior to that, so it just felt like I was kind of downgrading, but it actually fits my lifestyle much better being in Greenville. But yeah, I saw her on Instagram, and
she's a good-looking girl.
Yeah, good-looking girl. I'd made up some bullshit excuse to shoot her a message, and I think she still has the screenshots of when I was talking to her that day. But yeah, dude, I just made up some story to give an excuse to slide in the DMs.
I also met my wife through the DMs.
There you go. So, all right.
Cheers to that.
Absolutely.
You talk about, you know, you're in this fast-paced job, and you know you're successful. You know, fast-paced company. Y'all are growing. Like, talk me through that process in your mind to eventually leave. And you know, I know you started with Rebel Rabbit. Before that, you know, you were working off hours on Rebel Rabbit and doing your thing. But like, it's still a scary process to be like, all right, man.
Dude, it was. It was. That's a great question, because it took, oh my God, sorry, I'm leaning away from the mic.
You're good.
It took so much to build up the courage to do that, dude. And this is one of those things, it's like it feels serendipitous. When you're looking back on it, you realize that I didn't know it at the time, but I was working on leaving for years prior to leaving, and I didn't even know it. Like, I remember when I did start coming out of that kind of depression, I reached out to a life coach. She was a philosophical life coach. So not like a typical like rise and grind, go seize the day. Like, everything was kind of rooted in Buddhism and Stoicism and a lot of philosophy.
Very cool, yeah.
And it was awesome, dude. I loved it. And yeah, credit to her too. She was like a therapist, you know, helped me unpack a lot of stuff. So yeah, she helped me a ton. I forgot where I was going with it.
No, the decision to leave.
Yeah. So she helped me kind of unpack a lot of that stuff. Like, you know, she helped me understand, what is your relationship to money? Like, it was clear, like, I was ambitious. I was trying to climb the ladder, trying to do something with my career. And then you just think that's kind of normal, right?
Yeah.
Like, you just want a good life for yourself. But she would help me unpack, why did I want these things? Like, why do you think you need a raise? Why do you think you need a promotion? What would you spend the money on? And what we figured out was, like, I'm not that materialistic. Like, I don't need a lot of things, you know? So like, it was very eye-opening that, like, I probably don't need more. So a big focus of that was like being content with what you have. So that really helped me stop thinking about just like climbing the ladder, get the next promotion, get a raise, like all of that stuff. But then she helped me think about like my intrinsic motivation, you know, like what is the internal motivators for me versus the extrinsic motivation, which would be like your pay raise or whatever. So what we uncovered was that like building something was very important to me. That was way more important to me than having like a title or like getting the promotion. I wanted to build something or create something. So entrepreneurship was always kind of something I wanted to do. You know, I was selling burnt CDs in middle school and like, you know, like you name it. It was just always kind of hustling. So I knew that that was super important. And she kind of helped me build up the courage to try and start. And actually, you and I were talking a ton at that time. You know,
we were.
This was before you started, or right when you started, you know, Live Life in Motion and Afterlife and everything.
Yeah.
We were talking a ton at that time about this type of stuff. So she helped me build up the courage. That led me to taking a class, like kind of a founder's class on how you get started and everything. And it gave me confidence. It gave me confidence in myself, but then it gave me confidence in my ability. Like maybe I actually can do this.
Yeah.
And I started. And that's kind of the cliche that you hear all these entrepreneurs say is like, just start, you know, just start or fail fast.
Yeah.
It's the truth though. Like if you just get started, you start getting momentum. And I think we were very lucky that we kind of saw product market fit early with Rebel Rabbit. So that really lit a fire under my ass to keep going. Maybe other people's stories aren't like that, but it did give me the courage to start. And once I started, I quickly realized like there is no other path for me here. You know? So it was just kind of like, this is my exit plan. Let's get this to a point where I can replace my income, or at least most of my income, and kind of can take the plunge here. So luckily my wife has a great job. She was able to really help support me on the exit and everything. But yeah, dude, it was tough. Like I worked there for 8 years, like had all of these personal issues with my burnout and depression and just mental health in general, working to get equity. And I remember the day that they finally issued me the equity, my boss calls me and tells me like, I know you've been working for this for a long time. Like, here's what your equity's worth and everything. So I was like, dude, thank you so much. I'm gonna crush it. I'm gonna make sure that you don't regret this decision, all this stuff. I'm on the way to meet with our potential investor for Rebel Rabbit. So I hang up the phone, go into that meeting, and, you know, kind of ask to close this deal basically to get his investment. And, you know, he agrees to it. And he's like, but you know you're going to have to quit your job, right? And I was like, what? Like, I figured I would have months or a year, like a transition period, but he was very clear. And it was naive of me to think otherwise, but like, of course, they would, investor would be like, you're not going to have a salary over here and then just be like half-assing this if I'm putting money in it. Like, you're either in or you're out. So that was scary too, because it's scary leaving your job anyway, but it's even scarier to think, oh, what if I just stayed? What would my equity be worth? Like, you know, I worked so hard to get to that point. But dude, I think like it happening that way, like the stakes needed to be that high. Like when you're leaving knowing, you know, whatever that payday would have been, and it probably would have been a good one, like the stakes had to be that high. I had to feel like I was really jumping off the ledge. So everything kind of lined up for me to quit. And I wrote a check to myself of what I thought my equity might be worth one day and kind of have it like in my office just to remind me. But to be honest, dude, I don't think about it at all anymore because back to the intrinsic motivation, it wasn't about money. It was about building something. It was about doing something I cared about and all of that. So I don't think about that anymore. I'm just glad that the stars aligned for me to leave in that way, because when I left, I took it very seriously. I still take it seriously. But yeah.
What to that different motivation, what is the feeling for you of like you are building something? You know, like you work, right? You work for Rebel Rabbit, that's your company, and it's work every day, but in a way, it probably doesn't feel like work all the time.
Again, another cliche, you know, like you hear that, but like it is the truth, man. Like it is nightmarish some days, you know. I think I was telling you about when we closed on the brewery, Billy and I didn't sleep for 60 hours straight. Like my dog died after the first all-nighter. I had to go put him down, go right back to the brewery, pull another all-nighter. Like it will test you in every way possible. But then when you get that big sales order, or when, you know, you close a new deal, or you launch the rebrand, whatever, like it just gives you so much motivation. And one thing I've noticed, and this probably ties into not drinking, like not living for the weekend, which I think is part of the trap. You know, people, if you don't have a job that like really fires you up, you are just working towards the weekend. So when Friday comes, you are stoked. you are probably getting drunk Friday night, you're rolling into Saturday, you're scumming on Sunday, just like melted on the couch, and you're dreading Monday. And depending on how much you drank that weekend, Monday could be rough, Tuesday could be rough. Sometimes Wednesdays were rough for me still, So now that I
start drinking Wednesday.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're gearing back up, So I think for me, not drinking on the weekends, like my days all feel more similar. Like I'm not ecstatic on Friday, and I'm not dreading Monday either. But sometimes I don't do anything on the weekend because, again, when you remove alcohol being like the centerpiece of your social engagement, like, I don't know, it's just, I don't have to go drink on Friday or Saturday. I can just do anything. I cook, or I'll do laundry, or just bullshit I don't normally like doing, but you find time for stuff, working out, reading, whatever, playing music. So my days feel more normal. I literally, sometimes I don't remember what day it is because it's just like every day I'm just making progress, just chipping away at it, moving the ball forward.
It is a unique feeling. I think it's one that I've found. It's like Wednesday sometimes feels like Saturday.
Yeah.
And like Sunday feels like Tuesday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like you're in the similar mindset. Your goals don't change just because it's the weekend. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You don't feel like you have to let go and let loose and
yeah.
let all your stress go because it's just another day.
It's a nice feeling, you know? And so I don't know, there's a lot of variables there, the not drinking, starting a company, like whatever, but for me, that's exactly how it feels. And it's a nice feeling for sure.
What, you know, I really enjoyed having you and Billy on earlier this year, and we were able to really unpack Rebel Rabbit and like the story behind Rebel Rabbit, and we were building up to a rebrand, which y'all have now launched.
Yep.
So I want to learn more about what y'all chose, why y'all chose to go with what y'all did, and then talk a little bit more about the brewery and stuff.
Yeah. So the rebrand was, one, it was a tough decision to do it. You know, I really did like the brand that we came up with originally.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, and Billy and I both liked it, but the truth was, like, Billy had Swamp Rabbit Hemp Company, and he had that logo, and we had no money at all, and we just said, all right, we'll just use that logo, and we'll be Swamp Rabbit Seltzer. And then we had to rebrand because we got in trouble. So we had to rebrand to Rebel Rabbit. We'll use the same logo and same, packaging and everything. But we spent no money on it. So, and we didn't feel like we were telling our story. Our brand is so much bigger than just your packaging. I mean, granted, that's what you see, on the shelf. But like for us, a big piece of this brand is telling our story, telling Billy's story about recovery, telling my story about my mental health issues. And that was really what it was about. When we linked up, being friends since kindergarten through college, we linked up over the common bond of not buying the propaganda of alcohol anymore. And so that is our story. That's the story we want to tell. We want to tell that story. We want to open people's eyes to it. We want to fight the stigma against cannabis, and we want to normalize drinking cannabis. We didn't think that story was being told with the old brand. So when we did this brand, we wanted it, luckily we had a year of customer feedback and kind of learning who our audience is and learning who we were too as a brand. And the rebrand, like one of our taglines is "You Do You." So "You Do You" is like a non-judgmental approach to, to drinking or not drinking, whatever. So, we do not want to be like this pretentious, like, on our high horse, like judging you for not drinking. Like we were those people, I was party with the best of them, I was that guy. But, so I'm not here to judge anyone. Most of my friends still drink and drink a lot. And like, I don't care. So "You Do You" is like, you do you, dude. I don't care if you get drunk or whatever. I'm just here to let you know that there's another option here. If you want to drink less, or if you want to use this as a method of drinking less, or even to recover from being hungover, like whatever, dude, you do you. So it tells that story a little bit, and the rebel part of it is like, if you see some of the rebranding, and actually we just did a photo shoot in Brooklyn, and it's about to come out on Friday, and it's like really quirky imagery, like really weird looking stuff, people wearing weird clothes, like a lady walking a pig down, like in Central Park, like it's just weird stuff. So we're really leaning into being different. And I feel like when you're the person that is at a party not drinking, you are the odd man out. you are the weird one. So like the copy on the can is like, we are the rebels running the other way, so that's how we feel. So we want the brand to embody that.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look at the packaging here, like this doesn't look like your Spindrift there, or Olipop or Celsius or whatever. And that was the whole plan. Like, be different, be bold, be different, be loud, be obnoxious, just whatever. Just be different.
What did you learn about when you stopped drinking as much and you were at parties and people would ask, why aren't you drinking?
Yeah.
Like, did you quickly learn that eventually people just don't care? But I feel like a lot of people are nervous that people will care.
Yes, 100%, which I'd love to hear about your, how it was for you too. But I definitely, to my surprise, my friends were more accepting than I thought they would be. But absolutely, dude. Like, I think, remove your friends from the equation for a minute. If you are someone like me or like us that was drinking, very early, like, it's just different to be in a social setting without alcohol. Then you add your friends in and the societal kind of pressure to drink, then it can be very challenging. And I think a lot of times people will look at you not drinking and they'll kind of like, maybe they know that they shouldn't be drinking.
Definitely.
Or maybe they know that they should be drinking less. Maybe they wish they had the courage to drink less.
Yeah.
So they are going to talk shit, or they're going to rib you or whatever. They're going to have something to say about it. But it might be because of their own internal battle with whatever they got going on, and you're kind of bringing it to the forefront of their brain. It's just in their face. So I think that can happen too with a lot of people. But it is definitely a nerve-wracking thing. A big piece of Rebel Rabbit was like just to have something in your hand to blend in. If you are empty-handed, you can feel, like Ricky Bobby, like, what do I do with my hands here? Yeah. So I think that's a piece of it too. But it was definitely tricky. But to your point, once you start doing it and your friends realize, it's like bullying when you're like on the playground. If you don't pay the bully any attention, they're going to get bored and they're going to move on. I think it's the exact same way with drinking. It's not that fun or funny to keep making fun of you every time they see you. Like, it's old news after a bit.
With somebody, they say, like, they see anybody not drinking or somebody drinking a Rebel Rabbit, and they get curious, or maybe they have that voice in their head, that guy on their shoulder telling them, like, maybe I need to stop drinking, or I need to find another alternative. What are some of the more common, like, first questions y'all get about what Rebel Rabbit is?
Yeah, like, so, sorry, say that one more time.
So if somebody's interested in it, like, what they say, what is it? How do you feel? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So we get a ton of questions. So like, our Rebel Rabbit is kind of considered low dose. Like, our 5 milligram or mild hair is considered, like a half of a dose. Okay. So we are geared towards the low THC consumer, or the canna curious. So we get a lot of questions. People want to know, like, is it like alcohol? Yeah. Or what is the equivalent? How many beers is this like? So you have to really coach them, like, because it is not analogous to alcohol at all. The only thing similar about it is the fact that it is a canned beverage, basically. But the effects obviously are very different if you've ever smoked weed or whatever. So we have to kind of tell people, like, it's very relaxing. Like, back when we had Delta 8 and Delta 9, it's like Delta 8 would be more like an indica, like kind of more chill, maybe sedative. Delta 9 is going to be a little bit, more energetic. But like, at the end of the day, it's still both cannabis. So neither of them, Delta 9 is not like drinking a Red Bull. Like, they're still different. So there's a lot of coaching on what the effects are like. How many can I have? Like, do I want to do this in a social setting, or is this just something I do before bed? Yeah. But I'll say, now that we have a wide audience, a wide demographics, Gen Z to baby boomers, everybody metabolizes it different. Some people can, drink 7 wild hairs, and some people want half of a mild hair. Trip, my brother, he's been drinking these for like over a year. He doesn't drink alcohol anymore. But he still only drinks like 1 mild hair. Like, maybe he'll have 2. Yeah. So it's different. It depends on your body weight, your metabolism, your tolerance, maybe even medication that you're on. Everybody has a different experience. So the general rule is just like kind of approach with caution. Just start like low and slow, low milligram and slow time to drink it. Feel the effects, and then you kind of can understand what it is for you as an individual, because it's very different.
You know what's interesting? We started off talking about the influence of our siblings and our communities and our social circles, and I do see, you know, a little bit of a change where I feel like this is a leader. This is like a new mission. This can influence people in a better way. Like, how does that motivate you as like a, you know, maybe these high schoolers or kids that looked up to you and now they're like, holy shit, Pierce is like went through this and now, you know, he's found a better alternative. You know, maybe I can do it too.
Yeah. So like, you know, I was a swimmer growing up. So like I was a Gower swim coach, which, you know, in Greenville is a big deal, just doing the summer swim team. So, you know, I did have a lot of people that, younger people that looked up to me, and I was, you know, shockingly a role model to some people, even though I was not doing anything that was, you know, other than swimming fast, you know, there wasn't anything I was doing that should have been copied. But I did have a lot of people that looked up to me. And again, like drinking or getting drunk or partying was part of like my identity at the time. So now that I am where I'm at and, you know, we're having this conversation, I absolutely hope that people, you know, maybe those same kids that thought it was cool to get drunk, you know, because I did it, I hope I'm, you know, opening their eyes to the alternatives too, because it can be a trap. You know, those kids copying me is no different than me copying, you know, Tripp and Jessica, you know, when I was in elementary school and she was in high school. But it is a trap, and it's a trap that some people never get out of. It took me until I was 30 to get out of it. And so if I
kills
can,
a lot of people too.
it kills a lot of people, right? Yeah, I mean, look at, you know, Molly's Mutz, the guy that you had on your last, you know, he was 30 something until he stopped, you know, like. So, you know, it was just, I don't, if I can avoid someone from falling into that trap, then I want to. And if I can fight that propaganda that, you know, alcohol is not actually that cool, it's fine. Like most things, it's fine in moderation, but don't go off the deep end with it. You know, there are other options. And now there are more functional beverage options than ever before.
So true. With alcohol and the propaganda, where do you think the root of that is?
God, probably capitalism.
I
mean,
money.
Just think about big pharma, you know, think about big tobacco, like, you know, and I'm not trying to like bash alcohol, like, I mean, whatever, like we're evolving as a society, and, you know, people never questioned this before, but this is a story as old as time, you know, it is capitalism, it is driven by that, But I don't think that like the alcohol companies are like just evil. Again, we're evolving. You know, THC beverages didn't exist 3 years ago. You know, like, or at least the hemp beverages didn't. So, but yeah, I think you know, people. Maybe we were talking about this. Maybe I think you and I were talking about how when you see the ads for alcohol, it's like it's never them blackout. You know, it's them probably on their first beer, cheers in, you know, having a good time, but like. The darker side of it is like after your 8th beer, your 9th beer, your whatever shot, you know, you don't see the fights that break out. You don't see like the terrible hangovers, like all of that stuff. They're just kind of showing you one aspect of drinking. But the reality is it doesn't end after that 1, 2, or 3rd beer.
And the thing is, those 1 or 2 or 3 still have negative side effects.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of studies have come out that said like, you know what, you know, the glass of wine a day keeps the doctor away is bullshit. You know, like I think the Gates study said like 1 tablespoon is like still not even that good. So
it's kind of an interesting symbolism for you and Billy and for Rebel Rabbit, because I do think there is like a switch in people's minds and education around socializing and drinking, and y'all recently purchased a brewery that maybe wasn't doing too well because of the alcohol industry. I think a lot of craft beers are, you know, it's a tough industry.
Saturated.
Saturated industry as well. Y'all are able to take a brewery, purchase it, and now y'all are making non-alcoholic drinks.
Yeah. So right, I mean, the breweries are saturated. You know, the heydays kind of already happened there. Starting in the 90s, throughout the early 2000s. Now they're everywhere. Breweries are shutting down everywhere. I think Brew 85 did have a good run. And I don't even know, you know, fully why they decided to close up shop, but I think they largely were a successful business. But I just hear, being in the space, that breweries close down all the time. But I think it is really cool that we're in there, and our entire purpose is to flip that upside down and not make any alcohol whatsoever. We jokingly talk about like this being alcohol 2.0. and so it's kind of weird to say when I was just kind of talking bad about alcohol, but I do think that this can be alcohol 2.0. It is like the new and improved version. It is a method of harm reduction, in my opinion. I think that alcohol is, look at the studies. It is not good for you. Look at the studies on cannabis. It's not the same as water, but there's no comparison. Like, it is less harmful.
Sure.
So if this can give you something to hold in your hand, something to socialize with, if it can lower your anxiety, if it can relax you, these are a lot of the same things that we like about alcohol, but it's not as harmful. So if this is the beginning of alcohol 2.0, I hope that a lot of these microbrews that go under turn into non-alcoholic co-packing facilities, because I think that's how we're going to change the culture. That's what I'm always talking about, is changing the culture of drinking, making drinking be inclusive of things other than alcohol. Mm-hmm. That's what we have to normalize. That is what Rebel Rabbit's mission is. So I think we're not pioneering. We're not the first one to do this, but obviously one of the first ones to do it. But yeah, I think there's a way to work with alcohol to further this mission. Alcohol is doing what they do. They sell alcohol. Well, they know the system. They know the 3-tier system. They have the retailers. They have the distribution.
Government backing.
They have everything.
All of that. Yeah. Regulations, everything.
So there have been people who've suffered from alcoholism, families. There's an economic impact there. So I feel like they're in the best position to hitch themselves to our wagon, or us hitch ourselves to their wagon rather, and really change things, because this is an opportunity to make things better. We found that when we sell in alcohol stores, some of the alcohol stores, their sales will drop a little bit, but their net sales don't. Yeah. So there is a place for this. People are buying THC beverages instead of alcohol. So these stores are not losing sales because we exist. They're just selling less alcohol and more THC beverage. So if we can just play that out, extrapolate that out, partnering with beer companies and beer distributors and whatever, then I think they are in the best position to help us change the culture.
It's a smart move for them to do.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, you look at the Bud Light incident right now. They're hurting right now because of that whole thing. It seems like there would be a way to backfill their lack of sales because of Bud Light with something like this. Mm-hmm. It hasn't happened yet just because of the regulatory landscape, but someone like Anheuser would be perfect to jump in and fill this void.
Wanting to do it too.
Exactly. I think that will happen eventually.
Yeah. They should be smart enough to figure that out.
Yeah. Right.
With the brewery, how much have you learned about the science? Or this might be a better question.
This is a Billy question, but I will say though, when we closed, we had some supply chain issues where we were really behind on our stock, and so when we closed, we had to jump right in there to get caught up. And we had a partner before that was a brewmaster that was helping us. I mean, Billy was doing most of the work there. We were just essentially leasing that brewery, but we did have oversight. If there was a question, we had a very experienced brewer there to help. So when we bought it, we were on our own. And that's why we didn't sleep for 60 hours, because it's just like moving into someone else's house. You're just learning the nooks and crannies of that place. So,
and it's a brewery. It's
big, dude. It's real big, 11,000 square feet plus an adjacent building that's 7,000 square feet. It's just a massive undertaking to move into that, and someone with no beverage experience, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, so I was just there to support Billy, make sure he didn't feel like the Lone Ranger in there. We have our division of labor. He does a lot of the production and the operations, and I do a lot of the business side. But I was there with him to support him, and I learned a ton just in that first few weeks. And just being around Billy. Billy's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to cannabis and processing and flavor formulation. So he and I are very similar. We just dig our teeth into a subject and we obsess over it. So it's a very nice yin and yang. I do that on marketing and branding and sales strategy and business development, and he's doing it on the science and operations side. So we were both constantly feeding off of each other, and he's definitely helped me ramp up the science side.
How has it been probably a good influence on you being around Billy and his abstinence from alcohol?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I try not to. I still have a beer every now and then. I like an IPA or whatever, so I'll still have a beer every now and then. But I intentionally make a point to not drink around him.
Yeah.
I never feel that compelled to have a beer. So if me and Billy are out or we're traveling for work, it's very easy for me to not drink around him. So I'm not going to try and influence that at all. So, but I think, even aside from that, like just having this company, like giving him, a purpose, like he is needed in a huge way. He is a critical part of this business being successful. And I think that's what he needed. Back to what I was saying in the beginning about me being lost. I was just like lost in this burnout, this depression or whatever. He's probably lost in his substance abuse, So this helped him wake up. This gave him that exit strategy. If my issue was burnout through like being in the corporate world and I was looking for that exit, that's what this was for him with his substance abuse. And now like he sees like this thing's working, it's growing, he's vital to it.
Purpose.
Yeah, I mean, in the same way, I don't want to be hungover because I have a lot of shit to do to move this thing forward. He's not going to use again. He doesn't want to, deal with that again, reset the clock. Like he just got his, 1 year chip not long ago. Like he's doing so well.
Yeah,
so.
Purpose could be like the biggest change for people. If they can find their purpose, most people, they get into addiction, they get into substances because they're lost, they're depressed, and a lot of that becomes because they don't know what they're working towards. They don't know what their life's purpose is. You look at some of the hardest hit areas with like the opioid epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
You look at West Virginia, Kentucky, like areas like that, like part of the deindustrialization of America. Those are areas where they used to have coal mines and mills and textiles, all that stuff. And when that went away and there was no industry there,
the car manufacturers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Detroit, whatever. When there is no industry there and there's no job, there's no income to be had, like these people just get lost and they're hopeless. Hopelessness is like probably one of the biggest drivers of substance abuse, whether it's alcohol or opioids or whatever. So I do think that is the commonality there. Like people do need purpose. They do need to feel like they have something worth living for. And if you don't, or if you're so lost where you feel like it's not worth it, of course you're going to abuse drugs.
You know what? That's an interesting connection because your corporate job, though, was in the mental health substance use space.
Yeah.
So that had to give you some education a lot of times behind this, and now kind of help your purpose with Rebel Rep.
That actually 100% did. I know a lot about mental health and substance abuse harm reduction. That's one of the big principles of this company is harm reduction. So 100% very educated on all of that stuff. Where I thought you were going with it was saying that it is a little ironic that I was working for a behavioral health company and struggling with mental health issues.
You're right. That's common, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you're there helping other people, but if you're in the corporate office and it's a private equity,
I think corporate jobs,
corporate pressure, and that's where you climb the corporate ladder and you fall into a lot of those traps. So I mean, I don't think that was anything like that my company was doing.
Sure.
I probably self-imposed pressure that I put on myself, but it is a little ironic that I'm helping people with mental health issues and I'm struggling with my own issues.
Yeah. So. With the future of Rebel Rabbit, like, where are we going? Are we gonna sell to some major alcohol company one day, or like what do you see? Like, what do you see the future being?
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of going back to the beginning about where I felt like I had the most intrinsic motivation was to build something. So I do think like building something is very important. And then I'm really enjoying being a small business owner.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very cool just being in control of this business and choosing where it goes and all that stuff. Like, again, it was something that was pulling on me for years at my corporate job. And so now that I'm like kind of fulfilling that, it's like literally like living a dream. This is what I've always wanted to do. So I'm really enjoying that. I think we have a long runway until it would even be time to consider selling. I think we're still so early that that we do have more time. I don't know if it's 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, whatever, but there is more runway. But I do think there will be a time when we sell. The market will get consolidated, and it likely will be big alcohol or big cannabis or whoever making those acquisitions. So that probably will happen. But in the short term, we're having a lot of fun. We did launch this rebrand, but I feel like we're just getting started with the rebrand. Like we're just doing our photo shoot. Like we don't have that many social media followers. Like we're putting a plan together to get more followers and partner with influencers. Like this is all the stuff that I wanted to do. Like
going back to what you asked me at the beginning, what I thought I would do, like, being Donald Draper and creating commercials, it's like, I am in a position now to like draw up a commercial or an ad. And I've actually been working with our sales guy on doing like little TikTok videos and stuff like that. So it's like, this is really cool for me. So I know that it will happen. We got to be smart. We got to take care of our families. So you do have to probably have an exit at some point. We won't have it forever. But we will be smart about when we do it. In the short term, there's so much fun stuff to do. So.
What about the product?
Yeah. So with the brewery, being able to kind of like quickly iterate and do R&D and come out with new products, like we definitely we don't want to be a one-trick pony, first of all, with THC. We don't think THC is like the silver bullet here. That is just the functional ingredient we've chosen so far. I think there's a lot to be done with adaptogens and nootropics and functional mushrooms, not even, psilocybin mushrooms, just like, the regular mushrooms, like Odyssey, Elixir, like there's just a lot of opportunity there. So like our whole thing with Rebel Rabbit was really to just like engineer a feeling that is like, its more harmful counterpart. So like if THC is less harmful than alcohol, okay, like what other feelings can we engineer that make it safer and healthier for you? So we don't want to just be THC. We want to open it up. And eventually I think we will have a portfolio or a family of at least different SKUs within Rebel Rabbit, but maybe even other brands. So we definitely have ambitious plans on scaling all of that. We definitely will have new flavors soon. We're looking at some still beverages and, just playing around with a lot of different stuff.
Very cool. What about your support group? Like, what do your parents think? What does Lauren and your wife think?
Yeah. Well, my parents, of course, are extremely supportive. My dad, I mentioned my brother stopped drinking and basically only drinks Rebel Rabbit. My dad has done the same. He loved
cases of
I was about to say, he loved the Delta 8 mild hair. So when he heard we were phasing it out, he legit bought like $1,000 worth. Like, he has it stocked up in his basement. So they've been super supportive. My uncles on both sides of the family, family's been very supportive. Trip's been very supportive. But yeah, so that's been really cool. Lauren, of course, is supportive. She was very nervous about the whole entrepreneurial thing. Even when I was at Crossroads, I was just talking about starting a company. It really made her nervous. But to my surprise, it is. I totally get it. And she would say, like, I'm just like this daredevil, like adrenaline junkie that just irrational and doesn't think about these things. And, but to my surprise, she has been, she's kind of taken this in stride. And despite me, like, basically not making any money at all and her being, the breadwinner here, she's been super supportive. And I think she sees the momentum and she sees that we might have something here.
Yeah, the money's coming.
So it'll come.
With your tattoos, man.
Yeah.
What's next?
Dude, I was just telling Lauren last night that I need to get some appointments going. She's like, you are crazy. What do you mean you don't make any money? As you know, they're expensive, especially when you go to New York for every one of them. They're pretty expensive. So, but yeah, dude, I have a few in mind that I want. A lot of them tend to relate to like themes in my life or messaging, related to philosophy or stoicism. This one's a Marcus Aurelius tattoo. And so just some books that I've read and stuff.
You got your boy Debo on there.
I got my boy Debo, R.I.P. dude. Yeah, but I was with JP, Tripp's daughter, yesterday. I was holding her and she said, "Doggy."
What, maybe a funny story to end in this conversation. What was your first tattoo?
Oh, actually, my first tattoo was this one here.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know where you're going. Yeah, the second tattoo is probably what you're asking about. That one, took a impromptu road trip to Texas with some friends in college and made a pit stop in Austin, Texas, and got an ass tat of Texas, the state of Texas with the Texas flag in it. And it was actually, it was just awesome college road trip, just quintessential. It was just on a whim. We didn't plan it at all. We just hit the road, zero plans, and it was an incredible trip. And got it on 6th Street in Austin, which I ended up moving to right after I graduated. So Austin's got a special spot in my heart, and I think it's funny that that's where it all went down.
With Rebel Rabbit and the growth, how many states are you in?
I think we are in like 13 states right now, definitely heavy in the Southeast. We're not really anything west of Texas or Minnesota. So we're always looking for distributors. We're always looking for more retailers, which, that is just always something I'm doing. But if you look at the direct-to-consumer side, because the hemp THC allows interstate commerce, we are in way more states there. Just nothing like how we're in, New York or places with a lot of doors. But that's a big focus for me right now. As I mentioned, advertising, marketing, user-generated content, all that stuff. Trying to figure out how to get into more customers' doors than necessarily retail doors.
How is there regulations where you can't sell online?
So yeah, there are a few states for sure. I say a few. There are more than just a few. But it is a whack-a-mole game, man. Like, you have to watch it very closely. We're part of a lot of organizations and alliances and associations that kind of help us keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on. But New York was an incredible state for us. We were just moving volume up there. And then they didn't pass legislation. They passed an emergency ruling. So it's not a law that has to be overturned, but it is a ruling that needs to be overturned. So it's easier to change than a law.
Sure.
But that happens everywhere. Like, Kentucky's doing that. I think Maryland, Arkansas. So, one pops up and then another one goes down. It is just literally just whack-a-mole. So we're keeping an eye on it. But yeah, it's mainly actually not so much the interstate commerce rules. It's mainly, can the retailers sell it?
Got it.
The direct to consumer is way more open right now.
With somebody that's interested in trying it, what's like your message? Somebody's like, Pierce, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, should I try it?
Yeah, man, it is. Well, first off, we say that it's like a LaCroix with a little bit of sugar. This is not a soda or something with a bunch of sugar. We only have 7 grams of sugar in it, so it's real light, it's refreshing, it's high carbonated. So if you're not a seltzer person, then it might not be a good fit. But it is. It's a nice, easy drinker. And it's got 5 milligrams and 10 milligrams, so it really is perfect. Like, I would basically say, kind of the decision tree here is, have you had THC before or not? Yes or no? If yes, you probably could try a wild hair. If no, you definitely need to start with a mild hair. And I always say just split it with someone. If it's truly your first time, whether it's a wild or a mild, just split it. One of the nice things about THC beverages is, compared to like a gummy or whatever, is you can stop halfway through. If you drink, if you take a gummy, it is down the hatch and, you bought the ticket, you're taking the ride. Yeah. This, if I felt uncomfortable, I could stop with, this much left in it. So
that's such a good point.
Yeah, so that's why we always say low and slow. Just either split it or just drink it really slow. And also, unlike gummies, it's emulsified THC, so it's going to be a very fast onset, like 10 to 15 minutes tops, whereas a gummy can be 45 to an hour or longer. So this is really perfect for people who are new to THC. So if you identify with any of the messaging here, whether it's, just not wanting to drink as much, not wanting to drink at all, focusing on your health, your wellness, your career, whatever, if you feel like a change needs to be made, this might not be it, but it has helped me a ton. It's helped a lot of people a ton. We've got great testimonials.
Well, I think what you're doing is great. It's, I know, I love health and wellness.
Yep.
And trying to figure better ways of doing things, and I think a lot of people can benefit from your mission and your company. And Pierce, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing a little bit more about your story and being vulnerable a little bit. I really do think stories are incredibly powerful, especially when people kind of open up and tell their story, because now you're relatable and people can be like, oh man.
Yeah, man.
I looked at the Pierce party days, now I can look at the Pierce doing his mission, his entrepreneurial spirit, his company, all that sort of stuff. Yeah,
man. Well, happy to share. I appreciate you having me on again and being a great host. And thank you for letting me tell the story and share the message a little bit.
Thank you.